Hello, my name is Mello and welcome to the in-depth fuchsia guide. As always, I imagine that you already understand the basics of the character because I only give the in-depth information about her. Fuchsia is a Urbino character, so you can play her both on attack and defense. I can create difference on tactics using Fuchsia while attacking and defending. Her gun have a high spread and a high recoil, so it may seem weird to use it when you're starting it. Jumping while using her gun without having the spread control upgrade can cost you many fights. This is something to have in mind since it is a habit that most people have it and does not work as well on her. First, the Hunter's Feast. The Hunter's Feast is Fuchsia's passive and it consists of when killing an enemy, a crystal will drop. When you are close to it, around 10 meters, you absorb the crystal and gain HP. This ability can stack and increase Fuchsia's health on 40%, making her full HP to 140. This passive goes well with a momentum tactic, where Fuchsia kills someone, then push to absorb the orb, gets more health, and push more, killing more and more people, and only stopping when dying or taking a good amount of damage where her passive can heal her enough to take more fights. This tactic will work better on attack than defense though, because attackers normally get closer together, so if you're doing this on defense, you're very likely to get into a 2v1. For defense, you can kill someone while holding an angle and getting healed from the crystal dropped, making it easier for Fuchsia to hold positions for longer. Her self-heal can increase the time that you can hold angles, and if you get the overheal, you can push a bit, creating more space for your team. Fuchsia's passive can combo with other characters that have some sort of healing ability, or that simply can get away from fights easily. For an example, Fuchsia can go well when playing with a Ming, because when Fuchsia kills or gets an assist over someone, she heals herself. And when Ming does damage to someone, she gets more shield. So when fighting against those two, you're basically fighting against two regenerative tanks. Celestia also goes well with Fuchsia on defense. Since Fuchsia only regenerates HP when killing someone, in some situations you lose your shield, so even with the overheal, it's hard to hold a position. But with Celestia's heal, you can quickly get armor and hold the angle for longer. Depending on how much armor you got, you can even push to extend the position. This tactic could also work with Coconut, but Coconut's heal is simply too slow, so it wouldn't work as well. Well, why this can be done on attack is simple. Celestia will normally be busy with Ming, so it can be done most of the time. Some tactics can also be done with agents with high mobility, like Baimo, Celestia when she has ult, or Galatea, since you don't need to stay with you all the time. You can get some kills, then dash away like nothing happened. But Fuchsia mains don't like this tactic too much, because without Awakening 3, you would just die. I consider this tactic to be a good option, since her passive can heal her, and with a teammate, this can create not only a number advantage, but also a space advantage. Also about her passive, but entering a bit into Awakenings, Awakening 1, the Gluttony, increases the range that you can pick up crystals, from the normal range being around 10 meters, and the Awakening 1 range being around 45 meters. The metrics are not precise, but it's around that. Without Awakening 1, Fuchsia's passive is not very good, because to get the heal, you need to push a lot. While with Awakening 1, you can get a kill of the enemy mid-range and still get the heal. Now for Fuchsia's active ability, the Apex Predator. Fuchsia scans the area around her, exposing the enemies, but the enemies only get revealed to her. Her teammates cannot see it, and I've seen people thinking that it increases the rate of fire, but it really doesn't. Her skill have a different scan time depending on how much HP the enemy have. So if the enemy is full HP, Fuchsia will only scan him for a little bit, while if the enemy is low, she will scan him for the entire duration of her abilities. Her skill opens a big tactic that is essential while playing her. That is the Smoke Q tactic. Before using her ability, you smoke yourself off so the enemy cannot see you, while you can see them because you have your ability on. This is for sure the most common and the most efficient tactic that Fuchsia have, and can grant a good amount of kills. While for the bias over this ability, I would say that it depends on which awakening you prefer. If you go with Awakening 3 that briefly slows the enemy when activating the skill, I'd say that it's better to use the ability more often, since you slow the enemy and you use the awakening more often too. So going with less cooldown seems to be it. While if you prefer Awakening 2, I'd say go with increased duration, since you can deal some damage and scan them for longer. While for her ult, it makes the rate of fire higher and highlights the enemies, so it's basically a big buff to her gun. You can use it when you think you can win a fight, even though you have the disadvantage. When you're playing a 1v3 for an example, you can use her ult to get better chances of winning. Her ult can be extended when absorbing a crystal. So when using her ult, you're basically going berserk since you need to kill people for your ult to last longer. Also, comboing her ult and ability is a very common and effective tactic that I would for sure recommend. Now for her awakenings. Awakening 2 is what I like to call an individual awakening, because Awakening 2 is independent from her skills or passives. The revive can be useful in fights where you have the number advantage, since the enemy won't have time to kill you. This awakening can also be good against sniper, because it's just more convenient to self-revive rather than having the team doing that for you. And the long range fights where you can go over cover and the enemy don't have the time to push you. But you're not choosing an awakening because you want to increase your chances on times that you already have the upper hand. So if you're in a 1v1 and lose, your awakening won't help you. And in most cases, it's not hard to kill a fuchsia that is down. The awakening is not useless, but for most cases, it's not the most efficient. And that's where Awakening 3 come in clutch. With Awakening 3, you can escape fights easily, and if you're being chased, the enemy will be slowed and you can create more distance. You can also delay pushes. Since the enemy will be slow, they will likely want to wait this low to push, making more time for your team. And smoke queuing is even more effective, since the enemy will take longer to get into cover since they are slowed. Even though Awakening 3 can only be used when you have your ability, it combines really well with all of the previous tactics, and that's why I think this awakening is the best. Now for her buys, they're pretty obvious. The only ones that can be hard to pick is between recoil control and spread control, and between light armor or heavy armor. I prefer light armor simply because it goes well with her passive, so you can heal yourself to the max extent. And between spread and recoil, it goes on how good the player is. This is the most complicated part of the guide, so if you don't understand it, it's fine. Spread control is better for shoulder fire, in short range fights where you're bounce peeking the enemy. The spread in her gun is pretty high, so having spread control is normally better. But for long sidelines, it's better to have recoil control, since her recoil is pretty high. But if you can Gengu peek at someone at close range, the usage of shoulder fire becomes fewer. And I know most people cannot Gengu peek well, but with recoil control and good training, I see more situations where you can use recoil control over the spread control. If you're really good at Gengu peeking, you must already have mastered Fuchsia's recoil, so then it's just better to go with spread control, because the spread is out of your control, while recoil is something that you can learn. At the end of the day, it's about how good you are, and if you can Gengu peek, I'd say recoil control. But if you can't, then go spread. Pick the one that goes better with your gameplay. And this map can change depending on the map, how you're feeling that day, or just because you want to try something new. This pick is kinda just up to the player. If you didn't understand all of the Gengu peek explanation and stuff, just pick the simple explanation I gave. Long range equals recoil control and short range equals spread control. Also going on nades, when playing Fuchsia you need to have a smoke nade. It doesn't matter if you're attacking or defending. And I like to bring a frag nade too, but you can change your pick based on what you need. Just don't use heal nade since your passive already does that. And I wouldn't recommend Interceptor neither, but it would depend more on your playstyle and your team playstyle in general. Now to end the video, I would like to ask you to like and subscribe, and I stream on Twitch every day 3 PM PST, except for Sundays. So if you can, check it out. This time most of the guide was made from my observations of the character, and I took a great inspiration from Laufer's guide, so as always it will be linked first into the description. I couldn't find a lot of stuff explaining how to play Fuchsia, but everything I used will also be in the description.